and I was talking to him, and on the phone I was able to close the sale. So I actually just had a phone call with a client of mine, and I was talking to him, and on the phone I was able to close the sale. Now, the reason why I was able to do that was because I already had the concept ready. Now guys, if you don't have concepts ready in your hand, and if you're not mentally prepared to make that phone call and have a real conversation, come and join my session, which will be talking about the 50 concepts that would allow you to close cases even on the phone. So guys, I did want to share something with you. Sorry, during this break, I had a few client calls. Actually, very interestingly, I got a call from a client from Romania. And I thought I will share with him a few strategies that I was just talking to you about. And I said, I'm talking about the basics of financial planning. It is a very good way to start conversations. Guys, when you up your skills, when you share strategies, when you learn something new, learn to share that with your clients. It's a fantastic way to start a conversation, right? I do the same thing with my clients. I would call them up, or they would, whenever they call me, I would tell them, I was in a session, I learned this, and I thought it'll be useful for you. And share that concept, or share that idea, or share that strategy that allowed you to become better. Now, for those of you, I know I did notice some questions where people were asking that, Sanjay, what if I'm not able to watch this video live while you're doing it? Guys, I have told my team to put this video up into the group for at least the next 24 hours. So you would have access to this video for the next 24 hours. If you have got friends or advisors who you think should be watching this video, share the link with them and let them definitely watch it. Like I said, the whole purpose of this session was to provide knowledge on financial planning, which would allow you to be more confident when you are doing your sales and sitting down with your clients, right? So that was the whole purpose of doing this session. So now we have covered the 1, 2, 3, 4 of financial planning. Now I do want to cover the 5 and the 6. Now, when we talk about the 5 and the 6, there are 5 types of assets. And every time I sit down with a client, right, they're comparing one asset to the other. Let's write down, all of you, you should know this. There are the 5 types of assets that you need to focus on. And these are the 5 basic types of assets. Equities, or what we call business value, property, commodities and collectibles, bonds, and cash. That's it. There are only 5 asset classes. The others are what we call hybrids. That would be a combination of one of these assets. But these are your 5 basic asset classes: equities, properties, commodities, bonds, and cash. Now, each one of these assets have a different risk and return standard. You can't compare one to another. They all have a different purpose. And one of the biggest mistakes that our clients make, and even we make, is we compare ourselves to one of these assets. Each one of these assets have a different purpose and a different strategy. Think about this. Equities. So when you talk about equity investments talk, or equity as an asset class, provides capital growth, it provides income, it provides the variability of markets, so it can fluctuate significantly, but it can have a lot more growth. So it's a high return kind of an asset. That high return comes with high risk. But why do people do equity investments? It's quite simple. They want to play the markets. They want to understand, they truly believe that in the long term, the markets will outperform global standards. Now, equities in the past have always proved this true, as long as you have the capacity to hold. When do people lose money in equities? Couple of reasons. Number one, they don't have the holding capacity. Number two, they over leverage, right? So they can't, because they over leverage, they end up having very, very bad years. And those bad years can make sure that they lose their capital. So equities have a lot of advantages and disadvantages, and it's a separate asset class. Property, one of the favorite asset classes for retirement planning. So every time I sit down with a client, they tell me, Sanjay, I love to buy property. I like the rental income. So property has a certain purpose. Number one, it can be passed on from one generation to another. Number two, it provides some form of income in the way of rental income. All right. Number three, it can also appreciate in capital over a period of time. Now, usually, properties are a great way to hedge against inflation, because the value of your property usually increases with the value of inflation. If you ever see a real spike in property, It's because that is what we call an unusual spectrum. If you see a sudden downturn in property, again, that's an unusual spectrum. Over the long term, your property investment basically increases with inflation rates. All right. And that's the reality of the market. Studied it over many, many decades to give you this number. All right. So property has a certain advantage. One of the advantages a lot of people talk about, and especially a lot of my clients, is Sanjay, when I have money blocked away in property, I don't spend it. All right. Now, that's actually one of the most common reasons why people buy property. They want to keep money that they don't want to spend. They want to keep money that they don't want to look at. So basically they are saying I'm looking for an investment where I can't see the money, but it gives me a regular income and it holds its value. So it beats inflation or just at least matches inflation. And that's the reason why people look at property and love property. The third asset class, which I think a lot of people like, is commodities, right? Gold. I do work with a lot of Asian families, and Asian families do tend to love gold as one of their asset holdings. Now, think about this. Gold is a very good hedge against inflation. Gold is a very good store of value, but gold is very difficult to hold, right? Especially if you're holding gold bullion, right? Where are you going to store it? Your cost of insurance. It doesn't have any income. All right. So it's a great store of value, but not probably the best investment if you're worried about where to keep it. Right. So if you live in a place which is quite unsecured, or you don't know where to hold the gold, you have those problems. And then people will go for an alternative like a gold ETF, um, which is another way of doing it. So commodities become a part of your portfolio. Bonds. Why do people like bonds? I mean, they like it for their consistent coupons. They are usually lower risk than an equity, but they give you the exposure to an equity environment, because bonds are usually issued by corporates or governments. Uh, and majority of the bonds are primarily providing regular coupons, which is the reason why people buy bonds. They have a maturity value, so at maturity they tend to be capital protected. So you've got a lot of advantages and disadvantages. They could be illiquid, so that's one concern. Second is they can lose value. So when interest rates go up, bond values can go down. When interest rates go down, bond values can go up. Now, if we are in a flat interest rate environment, we can't make money on the bond price, but we can make money on the coupons. So there are certain strategies that come around bonds. But again, I can't be putting 100% of my money in bonds. And then we come to the fifth asset class, which is cash. I know a lot of clients who tell me, Sanjay, I like to hold cash because it's liquid. But we know one thing, that if you're holding cash, you're not beating inflation. All right. So from a logical perspective, you need to hold a combination of all the assets to achieve what we call the perfect balanced portfolio. Not one asset class is good, not one asset class is bad. Together, they create the perfect solution. All these assets, right, are the perfect mix for making sure that your family always has money. Think about it. If you want the right amount of growth, you need to be able to diversify in these five different assets. You need to make sure that you hold value. You need to make sure you're making consistent amount of income. So it's about mixing these assets to achieve it. If you tell me only one is great, then there's a problem. That's a risk that you can't afford. Concentration is great when you don't have a lot to lose. But diversification is a great way to hold on to its value. So diversification doesn't exponentially increase your returns, but it helps you control losses. Concentration allows you to grow your portfolio, but that's okay if you have not much to lose. And that's why demographic plays such an important role. When you're young, you don't have a lot of money, you can be concentrated. But as you grow in this business, as you grow in your life, as you get older and older, you need to learn to move from concentrated to diversified. And that's what gets passed on to the next generation, a pool of diversified assets. This is one of my favorite things to talk about. But we have got financial planning wrong. Guys, asset mixes is a financial theory. Asset mix is a great financial theory, but it's not a great financial planning theory. All of you have heard this: asset accumulation asset preservation, asset distribution. We all have heard this, right? So, right now, we spoke about asset accumulation, building the right portfolio. We spoke about asset preservation by diversifying. And then we talked about asset distribution, which is passing this on to the next generation. I just spoke about it, right? But this is a great financial theory. I want you to take a pause over here. It's a great financial theory, but it's not a great financial planning theory. We've got it wrong. It's not about assets, it's about income. And I want you all to think about this. What are we all working for? We're working for more and more income. So it's not about asset accumulation, it's about income accumulation. It's not about asset preservation, it's about income preservation. I don't want to lose the income that I get on a monthly basis, right? So it's about income preservation or income protection. And there is no product in the world that protects future income the way insurance does. There is no alternative to insurance when it comes to income protection. And that's the reason why a lot of asset managers don't talk about income protection, they talk about asset protection because they've not figured this out. We are the only profession in the world that protects future income for our clients and for families. And think about this. All right. So it's about income preservation. And then it's about income distribution. Think about this. What would you give your children? Would you prefer giving them a lump sum as an asset, or would you like to give them an income that they can use on a monthly, quarterly, annual basis? What would you like to leave your children? Assets or income? Think about it. Guys, we've got financial theory correct, but we've got financial planning theory wrong. Financial planning is about income accumulation, income preservation, and income distribution. Assets without an income become a liability. Assets without an income become a liability. So an asset is only as good as the income it generates. So if I know that, then why do I not focus on the income? If the income is good, the asset is automatically good. If the income is bad, automatically the asset is bad. It's as simple as that. It's just, and this presentation, I have a very simple presentation to explain this concept. I call it the tree and root presentation. All right. So if you look at the tree is only as strong as the roots it has. If you cut the tree, but the roots are strong, the tree will grow back. But if you cut the roots, the strongest tree will fall down. The tree is your assets. The roots is the income. If the income is strong, the tree will grow back. Now we are only seeing the asset. We are never looking at the income. And that's what blinds our clients. They are looking above the ground. They're not looking below the ground. They're focusing on asset values, but they're not focusing on the roots of that asset. If the roots are strong, the tree will automatically grow. But if the roots are weak, the tallest trees will fall down. Whenever there's a market fluctuation, the roots are weak, boom, the tree will fall down. And that's what we need to focus on. So if you truly want to be having a strong financial plan, you need to focus on the roots and not the tree. So it's about income, income, income. It's not about assets, assets, and assets. And that is what makes me different from other financial advisors, is the way I build this for my clients. I've created something called the ABCD strategy. All right. So the ABCD strategy is a duration strategy. It starts with aggressive. You see, when you're retiring, you want to start building variable income in the beginning and then slowly move it to guaranteed income. So the A strategy, which I call the aggressive strategy, is about putting money into equities, properties, commodities. So it starts with that. But as you build your portfolio, that's your concentration of risk. As you build your portfolio, as you keep saving more and more towards your retirement, you need to learn to shift from aggressive to balanced, where we now start adding a little bit of bonds. Then you move to cautious, where we start adding a little bit of money market, cash, something that's a lot more liquid, something that's a lot less volatile. And when you reach close to retirement, you want to move into anything that is liquid and provides you consistent income. All right. Because remember this, and I've said this before, an asset in retirement becomes a liability. An asset that does not generate an income becomes a liability. Get that very correct. So the way you introduce yourself, the way you speak to your customers, right? The way you speak to your prospects, and you focus on income rather than assets, it will change the way you're perceived by your clients. So, guys, this is financial planning knowledge. This has nothing to do with sales, but you can use this knowledge to create the best conversation with your clients and give them the best advice to your ability. So, it's about giving good advice. And that's what we're focusing on today, is giving your best advice to your clients. Today, we are documenting down basic financial planning advice for you to focus on so that you are more confident every time you speak to your clients and you're giving them advice that they can use right now. Not advice that they have to do 20, 30, 40 years in the future, but advice that they can use right now. And that's what I want you all to think about. Now, number 6, which is one of my favorites, right? The 6 sources of income. How many of you have identified all the 6 sources of income? Think about it. Rental income from property is one source of income. Coupons from a bond portfolio is a second source of income. Interest from fixed deposits is a third source of income. Number 4, dividends from a preferred share or an income generating share is the fourth type of income. Number 5, pension from a social security or a government system is the fifth type of income. Now, most of our clients have got these 5. They've forgotten to have the 6. Income from endowments and annuities. They've forgotten to have the 6th type of income. So every time I sit down with a client, they usually tell me, Sanjay, I've got a lot of passive income coming from my properties. I've got passive income coming from my bond portfolio. I've got passive income coming from my fixed deposits. I've got passive income coming from my equity portfolio because I've got a lot of income generating shares. I've got passive income coming from the government. Well, Mr. Klein, congratulations. You've got 5 out of the 6. You've forgotten number 6. Think about it, guys. If you want the perfect mix of income, you need to have all 6. I'm not saying one is better than the other. Each has its own pros and cons. Each of these income has its own pros and cons. And that's why I need you all to spend some time to understand the risk, the pros and cons of each type of income. Is rental income from property guaranteed? Not really. Because you have to maintain the property, you have to take care of the property, you have to manage the property, and then you have some source of income. So it's not really passive, it's active income. Are coupons from a bond portfolio guaranteed income? Well, to some degree, they have got some level of guarantee, but they're also variable. So remember that you have got reinvestment risk, you've got credit risk of the bond issuer. What if the company that issued the bond went bankrupt? So you've got the credit risk, you've got the reinvestment risk. So it's got some level of guarantee, but it's not guaranteed. Is the interest from fixed deposit guaranteed? For the duration of the fixed deposit, it is. But then again, you come with reinvestment risk, right? You have to make sure that the interest rates are staying consistent. What if the interest rates go down? So you carry interest rate risk, you carry reinvestment risk, you carry all these risks that come with fixed deposits. Think about it. Dividends from preferred shares or income from equity portfolio. What's nice about that? Well, the income is not guaranteed. It's not consistent. It can come, it might not come. If the equity value drops, you might not be able to liquidate. So there are a lot of things that come with that as well. So they've got pros and cons. I'm not saying one is the best. They all come with their own pros and cons. But together, they might be creating the perfect mix of income that generates when you retire. Pension from government social security. Well, usually that's guaranteed, right? The government protects it. But what if the political party changes? What if the politics affects that income? You see, when you reach of a certain age, you don't know how the government might change their rules and regulations towards social security. They might reduce your income, they might increase your income. We actually don't have that. So we don't know what happens, right? You can't predict that. But yes, once it starts, there's usually a guarantee attached to it. However, question is how much do you want to depend on it? And the 6th, which is what we call income from annuities and endowment plans. I want you all to spend some time to think about this. You need to have all 6 to be secured. You need to have a combination of all six, not one, not two, not three. So, one of the most common objections that you get is, Sanjay, I've already got the rentals, I've already got the bond portfolio. Why do I need an annuity plan? Or why do I need an insurance plan? Well, Mr. Client, you see, an insurance company's only job is to do proper retirement planning. The product was designed to give consistent income. The risk is managed by the insurance company. Think about it. Do you want to manage the risk when you get to 75, 80, 85? You probably don't. At that time, you just want consistent income. And that's what I specialize in, getting consistent income when you are not of an age to manage it. I have a lot of clients who tell me, Sanjay, I can keep managing this portfolio. Yes, you can. I truly believe you can. But what if one day you can't? You see, there are two types of retirement: voluntary and involuntary. Voluntary retirement is a very happy moment where you choose when you want to retire. That's a great moment to be in. But there's something called involuntary retirement where you have been forced to retire. And there are two reasons why you're forced to retire. Number one is usually bad health, right? So if you fall sick, you might be forced to retire. Number two is significantly old age. You might reach a certain age where you physically cannot work anymore and you will be forced to retire. We need to plan for that. That's what is good advice. Planning for involuntary retirement, because voluntary retirement you can take care of. It's the involuntary retirement that you need my support. It's the involuntary retirement, things that can go wrong, that can force you to retire. That is what I work on. And that's good advice. So, guys, I want you all to think about this, that if you don't get this correct, if you don't get this strategy correct, you're going to lose out to the opportunities that will be in front of you. 6 sources of income. This is the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of basic financial planning. If you're really serious about this career, if you're really serious about this business, I want you all to spend more time on understanding the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of financial planning. One presentation that helps you have that conversation. All right. 2 types of income that you can focus on, guaranteed or variable. The 3 questions that you need to ask to be able to understand what is your client's profile risk matrix. The 4 rules of thumb and the 4 products that we focus on. The 5 types of assets that you can invest in, and the 6 sources of income that will work for you in the future. Because if you think about it, if you use these 6 strategies, you will get to the next level. It will get your foundation set up. This foundation will allow you to build your team. This foundation will allow you to help new advisors when they join the profession. A lot of new advisors don't know where to start. This will help them understand how to work in this profession. Guide new advisors on the basics of financial planning. Give them the right foundation. If you give them the right foundation, they'll move to the next level. The problem is when a new advisor joins this business, they're pushed into selling products. They're not taught why. They're taught which product, which company, which solution. They're not taught why they need to talk about concepts. So guys, help new advisors get to the next level by giving them the right foundation. Spend some time. I have spent a lot of time learning financial planning strategies so that I can give the best advice to my clients. Now, I know some of y'all will start celebrating Chinese New Year in the next I would say in the next 10, 15 days, right? When you start celebrating Chinese New Year, guys, it's the best time for you to reach out to your clients, friends, prospects who need your help, who need your advice. The best Chinese New Year gift you can give to your clients is great advice. It's not about giving them ang paos and sending them gifts and chocolates. It's giving them good advice. When was the last time you actually valued the advice that you gave to people? When was the last time you made them feel that you have shared something with them that they wish they knew earlier? Guys, your best ang pao for Chinese New Year is giving the best advice to your clients. Spend some time to reach out to them. This is the best time to call anybody. They are expecting your call. Your family and friends who need to know about our business. Spend time to know that. Guys, 2022 has just started. If you don't have the right strategy in place, you're going to be in trouble. So over 2022, I'm just telling this to everyone so that you know what I'm going to be doing over 2022. I have a huge target for 2022. I'm working very hard. I don't have the time to keep doing events like this. So what I will tell you is what I will be sharing with you going forward. On the 28th of February, I'm doing the 50 prospecting and concept presentations. If you think that is something that's valuable, think about it. Get your basics first. This is a more advanced strategy that I'll be sharing. In May, I'll be talking about the objection handling because I realized the longer you take to handle objections, the slower your sales process is. So this will be more focusing towards your sales and not financial planning knowledge. So please remember that you have to learn financial planning knowledge and sales strategy to make it work perfectly. So I'll be talking about objection handling in the month of May. In the month of July, I'll be focusing more towards closing strategies and what are the subtle ways to build a proper closing system for yourself. And towards October, we'll again go back into final sprint. It is the last quarter. So we need to have the right strategy to get 2022 closing correctly. All right. So that's my session for this year. That's the plan that I have. Harris, if you could help me answer some questions, that'll be absolutely wonderful so that can help us do that. Let your team watch this video, guys. So spend some time to watch this video with your team so that they get their basics clear as well. So, when COVID started, I had advisors telling me, Sanjay, what should I do? So I know this advisor, amazing person, did very fantastic pre-COVID, but as soon as COVID started to mess up. I mean, he didn't even know what to do next. One simple conversation with him changed his entire business. So the conversation that I had with him was very simple. And I want to share that with you because I think all of you all need to understand that pre-COVID and post-COVID, what has not changed? So what has changed is very small, but what has not changed is very important. What has not changed? People still need insurance, COVID or no COVID. Children still want to go to school, COVID or no COVID. People still want to retire, COVID or no COVID. And more importantly, people will still pass away, COVID or no COVID. So the responsibility of a financial planner has not changed, COVID or no COVID. What's changed is the way we communicate. So previously I would sit down with an advisor and have a face-to-face conversation. But that's not happening anymore. What I'm doing now is having a face-to-face conversation using some technology. So I'm still doing a face-to-face, but either doing it on a Zoom call or on a WebEx call or on a Google Meets. So I'm using different technologies to have that face-to-face. But if I can't do that, then let's go back to the basics of when insurance advisors back in the past did. Pick up the phone and have a conversation. You see, back in the day, that's how you got your prospecting done. You picked up the phone and spoke to people. If text messages could sell insurance, computers would take our jobs. If emails could sell insurance, computers would take our jobs. If a Facebook message could sell insurance, computers would take our job. You need to get that correct, that the basics of financial planning have not changed.
Okay, so for everybody that's watching, if you still have questions, please put them in the chat. Our team is still gathering some questions. But we do have a collection of a few questions that already came in from previously. So let me start. This is a question from Dinesh. Dinesh says or asks, Sanjay, if one client has a 5-year-old and another at 15 years old, so two kids, one 5-year-old, one 15-year-old, do you think the generic number of 5% for education still is a good number? Should it be more? Should it be what? How would your advice change?
All right. So it starts with giving generic advice. I'll give you very simple. So you should have started saving 5% as soon as the child was born. Now, you haven't started. So if your child is already 15, think about it. You have lost 15 years of saving 5%. Right? Think about it. It's as simple as that. Your child is 5, you have missed out 5 years of saving 5%. So obviously you can't save the same amount of money. You should be saving 5% from the day the child is born. And that's one thing that people don't understand. So I can give you specific advice for this client. However, they should anyways be saving 5%. They should have already saved that 5%. So if they have not saved, bad luck. It's better they start now with something at least. It's better to have some money when they are starting education than to have no money at all. So I'm not saying this is a foolproof plan. but it allows you to make sure that the parents have some money at least to allow the child to start the education. If they need more money on the way, well, we'll figure that out. They might have to sell some assets, they might have to take a loan. We will figure that out.
Mhm.
But if you have some money saved, at least you have a head start so that when the education starts, they already know that they have started the education and we'll figure it out on the way. So that's the correct way to handle it, Dinesh.
All right, perfect. Now, a question from Shipra. She asks, how to protect spouse's income if the spouse isn't working?
Well, okay. Uh, First of all, we protect the income of the breadwinner. Okay, so that's how the financial planning strategy works. Number one, you're protecting the income of the breadwinner. Now, the income of the breadwinner has to be protected in three scenarios. Number one, in case the breadwinner uh, loses his job, falls sick or passes away, the family needs an income. In case the spouse or the breadwinner falls sick or passes away, the breadwinner's income needs to be protected because now all of a sudden he takes on the responsibility of the spouse. I'll give you a simple example. Let's assume we're talking about a housewife. All right. So for all the women out there, I'm just generically talking. It's generic advice. Don't think I'm being I'm not supporting women or something, but I just want you all to understand the concept. So there's a husband who works, there's a wife who doesn't work. And the husband's earning, he's a breadwinner. The wife is taking care of the children. If something happens to the wife, right, all of a sudden the father has to also become the mother. So who is the father then? Who's going to work? So I need to protect the income in case the spouse falls sick or the spouse passes away. The third scenario in which I have to protect the breadwinner is in case if the child falls sick. Think about it. If the child falls sick, would you be going to work or would you be spending time with your child? So I need to protect your income in case your child falls sick as well. And a lot of people don't realize this. They keep telling me, Sanjay, why do I need to buy income protection for my child? My child is not earning any money. My friend, it's very simple. When your child is unwell, do you want to be spending time with your child or do you want to be going to work? So I need to protect your income in all three scenarios in case you fall sick, in case your spouse falls sick, and in case your child falls sick. Right? And that's why income protection is very important for the breadwinner's income. So even if your spouse is not generating an income, it's your income that gets affected in case your spouse falls sick. And that's how I would handle it, Shipra.
Okay, perfect. Now, question from Bharat. He asks, Dr. Sanjay, the things in India are somewhat different. So he says that they have life insurance, so you have term, endowment, whole life, but do not have specific critical illness product. So while you're presenting 28,000, how do we proceed with that?
So you do have in India something called accelerated critical illness, which is a product that basically pays out in case of critical illness or death, whichever happens one. So it is not necessary that you have to have a specific critical illness product. You could have it as a rider, which is an accelerated benefit. So basically, I would pay out in case you have an illness or you pass away, whichever happens first. So you do have that product in India. It's not different in India. It's pretty much the same globally. So a lot of countries don't have a standalone critical illness. Actually, personally, I don't even think people should buy standalone critical illness because the cost of standalone critical illness is almost the same as buying accelerated critical illness. So personally, I think it's you could actually be doing both in one product, covering life insurance and critical illness, and that could be a very good general advice that you could give to your clients.
Mm-hmm. Okay, perfect. All right. Now, a question from Juan. Juan asks, the 5% for education, is that for one child or what if there are multiple children in the family?
I love this question. All right, guys, I want you all to think about this, right? So when I was doing my PhD, I was trying to put together a financial plan that can be followed by any family. So think about it, if you have three children, the three children's education today is based on the income that you generate, right? So you don't have higher income because you have more children. Your income is a constant. Whether you have one child, three children, five children, or 10 children, your income is a constant. There's only so much of your income that you can actually save. If you're already spending 7 to 10% towards life insurance, You're spending another 20% towards your retirement, right? So that's already taken up 30% of your income. You can probably save another 5% more. You can't save more than that. So just because you have more children doesn't mean you have to save more money. It only means you better be earning a lot more. All right.
Yeah.
So it's 5% of your income and not 5% per child. You should be saving between 30 to 40% of your income towards your financial plans. That's usually the benchmark. 20% towards your retirement, 10% towards your insurance policies, and 5% towards your kids' education. So that's usually the matrix. That's the rule of thumb. It could be slightly higher, it could be slightly lower, depending on your case to case scenario, but that's the general rule of thumb.
Yeah, I think it's really important because sometimes if families try to oversave for their children, they then forget their own retirement, and then it comes back to square one, and then they become a burden to their children because they never plan for themselves. So yeah, I think it's very important.
Absolutely. Right. So there's a question that I ask a lot of my clients. Would you want your kids to be taking care of your retirement, or would you like to do it yourself? Because somebody needs to, right? So would you like to be dependent on your kids? Some families do agree to that, right? So I do know of families that say, Sanjay, my kids are my retirement plan. And I'm like, have your kids agree to that?
They're 5. They don't know.
Yeah, exactly. I love having that conversation. My kids are my retirement plan. I end up having one of the most funny conversations with them, but it's a fun conversation, right? So I had a client who told me that once. Sanjay, I'm investing so much into their education. I'm investing so much into their business. I'm investing so much into their lifestyle. I'm investing so much into them. And I said, that's absolutely wonderful, right? But have they agreed to take care of you? Sanjay, that's my value system. That's a value system of our family, that we will take care of our adults. That's brilliant. You see, they will take care of you from a moral perspective. But do you want them to take care of you from a financial perspective? It's very easy to ask for moral support. It's very easy to ask for emotional support. It's very difficult to ask for financial support. Think about it. Guys, even your best friend will at any time in the world give you moral support, emotional support, spiritual support, any other type of support except financial support. The one thing that my father taught me when I was very young, he said, Sanjay, you can ask for any type of favor, but you can never ask for money. Because even if you ask for $50, right, they'll be like, why do you need it? Right? Think about it. Guys, this is for all of you to understand. You will get any type of support in the world. The one type of support you will not get is financial support. And why do you expect it? So why not plan for the financial support? Because everyone will give you moral support, including your neighbor. And my father said that to me many, many years ago. He said, son, if you don't take care of me, don't worry. Even the neighbor will.
All right, so move on. Next question. We have a question from Colin. Dr. Sanjay, most of the clients are asking for short-term investments, but usually insurance investments or insurance endowment policies are usually more longer term. How do I handle this objection when clients prefer short-term investment options?
So one of the things, the way I talk to my clients is explain to them the difference between doing long-term and short-term. Short-term investments are great if you're doing something that's for liquidity, right? So if it's an emergency fund, I would tell you to do short-term investments. The advantage of doing long-term investments is locking in guarantees for the long term. You want to make sure that when you achieve a certain age, you have achieved that certain financial goals. And it's important to have those long-term commitments towards yourself. It's not the insurance company. It's not about the product. It's not about that. It's about the commitment to yourself. When you marry someone, can you do short-term marriages? Not really, right? A marriage is for lifetime. Your commitment to your spouse is pretty much for lifetime. Your commitment to your children is also pretty much for lifetime. So if your commitments are short-term, you can do short-term planning. But if your commitments are long-term, you need to do long-term planning. Your commitment to your family is long-term. It's not short-term. So remember one thing, your plans have to be based on your commitment duration. For example, let's say you take a liability for a car. So you take a 4-year car loan. You need only insurance for 4 years. Why? Because in 4 years, that commitment is over. So The duration of the commitment is the duration of your financial plan or the product. So the product only matches the duration of your commitment. Short term duration, short term commitment. Long term duration, long term commitments. And that's how you handle that objection.
All right, perfect. Okay, a question from Chintaka. She asks, what if your insurance company goes bankrupt? What happens to all the money you paid as premiums?
It's a brilliant question because I've been asked this question by a lot of clients. Guys, please understand this that insurance companies, first of all, have got two levels of protection. The first layer of protection is your local regulation. All right. So the local regulation usually will protect clients for insurance. So the country, the government, your local regulation will protect them. The second layer of protection is usually what we call reinsurance. Insurance companies also buy reinsurance to protect its portfolio from having excessive losses. All right. So you also have that second level of protection. Governments around the world understand that insurance is a plan B for everyone. And if your plan B fails, there's nothing that protects you. So insurance companies are a safety net, not just for families, but also for economies. They are safety net even for governments. So there is a lot of regulation in place to protect the insurance companies from going bankrupt. There are a lot of due diligence, a lot of checks. So there is a lot of regulatory uh, support that protects insurance companies. So will it go bankrupt? Can it go bankrupt? Well, technically, from a fundamental perspective, there are many things that can happen that could go wrong. However, there are a lot of cases in which you are protected, right? So there's regulatory protection, there's reinsurance protection, and you will be able to monitor that on a regular basis. You will not see an insurance company just disappear. There's a lot of government that would get involved. There's a lot of work that gets involved. So you have that opportunity to protect yourself and your clients. And that's how I would handle that question.
All right, perfect. Okay, a question from Sunny. Sunny asks, if you have a client that's nearing his retirement age, so pre-retiree, what kind of product can you recommend?
Usually, if someone is getting very close to their retirement, an immediate annuity is a good option because they would already have some liquidity on the side, which they could convert into an income. And I would definitely talk about getting critical illness insurance or life insurance so that they don't have to worry about the capital. So they can actually start consuming the capital, and that capital can be passed on to the next generation as a life insurance policy. So I would usually use immediate annuities or what we call short term quick annuities that would pay out for a client like that. So that's what I would use.
Okay, perfect. All right, a question from Sarah. Sarah asks, how can I convince my client, she is female, single, and a vice president in a company, to get health insurance? She has no health insurance right now. She only wants to focus on investments.
Okay. First of all, Sarah, health insurance is a very commodity product. So let me be very clear about this to everyone. Health insurance is a very commodity product. Providing advice on health insurance, you have to be ready to provide commodity advice on an annual basis. All right. There are a lot of people who will not feel the need to buy health insurance because they feel they're healthy and they don't need it. However, we need to understand health insurance does one very important thing. It caps the maximum loss from your pocket. So if you do fall sick, health insurance, basically the cost is your premium. Once you have paid the premium, you know that the doctor's bills will be taken care of. So in case you're admitted in a hospital, you've got two ways to pay for it. You either pay from your own pocket or you get the insurance company to pay for it. Which one would you prefer? Would you like to pay it for yourself or would you like an insurer to pay it? Now, if you pay from your own side, it's self insurance, which means there's no loss. There's no loss capacity, which means it could be any amount. And you could end up liquidating all the investments that you're very proud of. All right. And you could be liquidating them at the wrong time because when you fall sick is not linked to markets. You could be falling sick when the markets are going down. You could be falling sick when the market is going up. It's not related to markets, right? So if you do fall sick, the question is, do you want me to pay for it or do you want to pay for it? The advantage of me paying for it is you have a maximum capacity on how much you have to spend. And that is your insurance premium. But if you want to pay for it, there's no ceiling to how much that loss could be. And that's how I would handle that, right? Is explain that to my client that listen, set a ceiling to your maximum loss on an annual basis and use the income from your investments to pay for that ceiling.
Mhm.
And that's how I would handle it, Sarah.
Yeah, perfect. Use the income to pay for the premium, so you still get to keep the capital.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. A question from Aditya. Aditya asks, right now there's quite a bit of inflation, right? So income from annuity plans get affected. How do you convince or how do you talk about that?
All right. So first of all, you have to understand an annuity basically. So again, this is very product specific. So let me give you a little understanding of what happens over a period of time. If there's inflation that's happening right now, your annuities slowly catch up. If there's again the inflation drops, your annuities take very long to come back down. So it basically smooths out the effect of inflation on your portfolio. So yes, there might be certain years where your inflation is higher than the annuity payout, but there will be certain years where your annuity payout is higher than the inflation. So I'll give you a simple example. My father had started an annuity plan for me back in the 80s, which pays 8% per annum guaranteed. Now, at that time,
Yeah.
8% was very low because the interest rate in the market was 12%. So people were like, I'm getting 12% in my fixed deposit, and you're only paying me 8% in my annuity. Well, today I'm still getting paid 8%. The interest rate in the market is almost zero. All right. So you've got good days, you have bad days. You've got good days, you have bad days. But it's about finding the right mix. So I'm not saying that one product is the best product. It's a good part of your portfolio. And that's why I spoke about the 6 sources of income. The equity portfolio, the dividend paying portfolio will adjust for inflation. Your bond portfolio will adjust for inflation. Your real estate will adjust for inflation. But those are all variable income.
Yeah.
Your annuity portfolio gives you consistent income,
Mhm.
right? So it's about using the perfect combination of all 6 sources of income. And that's how I would handle that.
Yeah. I mean, in fact, I'm not sure if this is available everywhere, but in Singapore, we have, variable annuities that have a portion guaranteed, a portion variable. So, you can
So,
use
well,
stuff
you
like
have
that.
that in Singapore, you have that in Hong Kong, you do have that in the US, you've got that all across Europe. You have that in India, you have that. I mean, you can even create a variable annuity portfolio using an ILP. So, a lot
Yeah.
of people have not realized that you could even be using an investment linked product to create a variable annuity type of investment using a combination of all the different funds or asset classes that you can invest in. So, guys, please understand your product choice is dependent on the strategy that you want to build. You can actually use even an investment linked product to create a variable annuity kind of return using a combination of fixed income, bonds, equities, real estate, or REITs to kind of build that combination of the 6 sources of income into one product. So you do have that option. It's just about how creative you can be with your asset mix and your product choices.
Okay, perfect. Okay, now a question from VJ. VJ asks, how do you compare insurance with mutual funds?
You can't. That's one of the biggest mistakes that financial advisors or financial planners or even clients do. The purpose of mutual funds is very different from insurance. The purpose of mutual fund is to have a growth portfolio. The purpose of insurance is to protect future income. How do you compare something that is protecting future income and the other thing that's actually talking about growth? It's like saying, how do I compare an airbag to a gearbox? All right. You have a car. Okay. The gearbox decides the speed. So that's your mutual fund. I can go in gear 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's the speed of my portfolio. Do you want to drive a car without an airbag? I can't compare the airbag, which is a safety net, which is your insurance, to the gearbox of the car. You can't drive a car without a gearbox. So if you just have an airbag, right, but there's no gearbox, well, the car is just standing still, right? The airbag has no value. So it's about finding, you need, though, to have the car, you need to have different things, right? So your mutual fund portfolio or your investment portfolio is the gearbox of the car. It decides the speed at which your car will move. Now, the faster your car moves, the more insurance you need because you've got a higher risk of having an accident, right? So when you're comparing mutual funds to insurance, you're comparing a gearbox to an airbag. And you're saying if you have a gearbox, you don't need an airbag, or if you have an airbag, you don't need a gearbox. It's absolutely incorrect, right? So guys, get that very clear. You've got to stop comparing things that are not even related to each other. They're part of the same car. They're part of your financial car. All right. And that's what you need to understand. They're two different parts of a car. And you're comparing, not even comparing apples to oranges. You're comparing airbags to gearboxes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I mean, that's perfect. Actually, it's a very simple analogy to understand. Yeah. Okay. A question from Christopher. Christopher asks very simply, how did you come up with the 28,000 days? Like, why 28,000 days? Because I also know that life expectancy is increasing. So, are you going to change it to 32,000? I don't know.
Okay, so it's been a rule of thumb, right? So again, like I said, 28,000 is a rule of thumb. If life expectancy increases, it only means you need to plan retirement for a longer period of time, right? So the only change in the presentation or the only change to your advice is that you're going to live longer. And if you're going to live longer, I need to plan your retirement better. So that's the only change to that presentation that needs to be done. I was taught 28,000 by one of my mentors, and that presentation stayed on. It became a very easy conversation starter. It's easy for people to relate to because a lot of people psychologically still think 80 is the right age, even though life expectancy is increased. I mean, I have clients who tell me, I think I will not even cross 60. And I said, if you're not even going to cross 60, then we have a bigger problem. Right. So I still have clients who tell me, Sanjay, I think life expectancy is 60. And I said, that's all right. It only means you have lesser time to do whatever you want in your life. All right. So we need to make sure that you're even protected during that lesser period of time. But if people agree that life expectancy is longer, then the only change in my advice is we need to plan your retirement a lot more better because, hey, you're going to live a lot more longer. Right. So at least let's prepare for 28,000. If it becomes 30,000, then we just need to make sure that you're prepared for 30,000 now.
All right. Okay. Very good. Okay. So, okay, we have a question. It's kind of repeated with inflation and return things. I'll skip that. Okay. A question from Gurpreet. This is actually a pretty good question. So he asks, I have a client that says they have enough insurance, but they refuse to disclose their portfolio, right? And so how do you deal with that? How do you make sure that this person actually has enough?
Gurpreet, that does happen with quite a few clients that I meet. So they don't really want to disclose their financial net worth or their insurance portfolio or their investment portfolio because of two reasons. Number one, they probably don't trust you enough yet. And number two, somebody's already told them that they have enough. All right. And that's when it's very important to use the rules of thumb. So tell them, I'm sure you have enough, but why don't I share with you the rules of thumb? And if you have fulfilled these rules of thumb, you're correct. You have enough. Life insurance should be approximately 10 times of annual income. If you have that, great. Income protection due to illness or what we call critical illness should be 5 times of annual income. If you have done that, great. You should be saving 20% towards your retirement. If you've done that, great. And you should be saving 5% towards your kids' education. If you have done all these four, great. You actually don't have to worry about it. So, Gurpreet, understand one thing. I've actually not met a single client in the world that's done all four. That's the good news. The bad news is they might believe they have enough. And that's why the rules of thumb are such a great way to help them and self-analyze. Guys, it's not about being pushy, right? It's not about being salesy. It's about educating your clients on what's proper financial planning. And that's what this session is about, giving good advice to your clients, irrespective of whether they work with you or they don't work with you. When you leave that meeting, if your client is not saying thank you, you have not given them enough value. When you leave that meeting, your client should feel, wow, I'm so glad I met this person. I'm so glad that this person shared something with me that I wish somebody else would have. When was the last time you had a client tell you thank you for the advice that you have given? That should be the purpose of your meeting with your clients, not selling, but rather educating them on how to do proper financial planning. So that's how you handle it, Gurpreet.
Yeah. In fact, some, I guess, personal experience, for clients that refuse to disclose. And let's say you even finally get them to disclose, they might be like, oh, I think I already have too much. And then they even want to cancel some of their plans, so they might even backfire.
Yeah, I've seen that. That's happened. Like I said, I realize fact finding doesn't work because they don't give you all the facts. So I know. I wish they did, right? So people lie. I mean, I go with the straight mentality into a meeting, knowing the fact that people have an ego and they will tell you things that make their ego feel fine, right? How many people will sit down and say, I'm sorry, I messed up, right? Or I'm sorry, I've not saved enough money, or you know what, I've not bought enough insurance. When was the last time a client ever told you that? So they have that ego of that them being correct. And that's why don't challenge that ego, right? Just educate them enough so that they will make corrections and say, oh, you know what? Thanks for sharing that. And, let's upgrade what I have. Or they will give you the data and then you make the call.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Perfect. That pretty much wraps up our Q&A time. So thank you everybody for your questions. I think if we have more, maybe we'll find another time to answer the rest of them.
That's
But
brilliant.
yes, that's pretty much the
So,
end.
guys, I do want to remind everyone on the 28th of February, we do have the session, which is specifically towards prospecting and concepts, so that you have got 50 good prospecting concept sales strategies for yourself to start the year. It's on the 28th of Feb. So I think we've sold out. But in case, I'll check with the team if we can open up some more slots, because I know I saw a lot of messages saying, when is the session and how do I come for it? So for those of you who are interested in that, I'll get my team to open that up for you. For those of you who are in my big case closer, guys, this is the time to use proper financial planning advice to get your sales cranked up. We're almost towards the end of month one. Don't lose out on this opportunity of Chinese New Year to start having conversations with your clients. It's a great time to pick up the phone and talk to them, right? So for those of you who are celebrating Chinese New Year, use this opportunity to pick up the phone and talk to your clients.